The honourable member Todd McClay.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. It gives me pleasure to rise and to speak in this debate. The last speech from the Leader of the Opposition reminded me of a speech I heard on the 25th of November last year. It was a Friday. In Rotorua, the sun was shining. In a dam not so far away in the Taupo electorate, the then leader of the Labour Party, Phil Goff, was standing with 3 or 4 of his supporters, and I heard a similar speech on the news that night. And it was all about what was wrong with New Zealanders, how the government wasn't listening to them, and what a great error that they would make the next day if they voted for John Key and his government. I say to the current leader of the Labour Party, the solution is simple and it's within his grasp. And it's possible for him and his colleagues during this debate to stand up and say to New Zealanders, we will buy these assets back. Stand up and say to New Zealanders, we believe this is so wrong that today we make a commitment to buy those assets back. And can I say that at least one party in this House has stood up and laid their cards on the table in this respect and told New Zealanders what they'll do. I look forward to hearing that from the other speakers in the debate. Stand up, say to New Zealanders, this piece of legislation is so wrong that today the Labour Party makes a commitment to buy it back. And you know what, Mr. Speaker? I don't think we're going to hear that at all. January of last year, 2011, Prime Minister John Key stood up and said to New Zealanders there was a plan to sell parts of assets that were currently owned by the government. He told New Zealanders about the mixed ownership model. January of last year that was. 19 months ago, Mr. Speaker. Then all parties in this House campaigned on this issue. 10 months later, there was an election where New Zealanders knew if they re-elected a government, what would happen, and they certainly knew from the opposition what their position was on this issue. On that day, on the 26th of November, 1 million New Zealanders voted for the government, Mr. Speaker, the largest vote that any party has had under MMP. Significantly less voted for the Labour Party. In fact, I did a quick bit of research. One of the lowest votes that Labour ever got under MMP. In fact, my colleague tells me it was the lowest vote. So on one hand, we have a party that campaigned on an issue that was announced 11 months earlier, and we got the largest vote possible. We had another party who had a one-issue campaign. A one-issue campaign. It's the only thing we can remember them talking about, and the lowest vote possible under that scenario. Mr. Speaker, today this debate is about 3 things and 3 things only. It's about controlling debt, not borrowing more money. It's about strengthening capital markets, and it's about funding for new high-priority infrastructure programs. And that's all this is about. We'll hear lots of things from the opposition, but that's all that's about. You know, Mr. Speaker, the difference between what is proposed today is simple. Over 11 months last year, this was campaigned on. Our Prime Minister, John Key, fronted up to New Zealanders, and he said, we won't do what other parties did previously. We will retain 51% control for the government on behalf of New Zealanders. 49% would be offered up to sale to New Zealanders for KiwiSaver, for the super fund, for iwi. And there will be a 10% maximum put on that so that no other party other than the government can own too much of this. Now, $5 to $7 billion is estimated will be raised to invest in important projects in New Zealand. Not to go and borrow more money, to invest in important projects for New Zealand and for New Zealanders to benefit. Now, you'll hear in the debate from the opposition, Mr. Speaker, that this isn't a problem. It's not about debt. This is all about other things. Well, our debt in New Zealand is forecast to peak at 30%, about $72 billion, forecast to get back to surplus in a couple of years' time. When we came into government 4 years ago, we inherited an atrocious forecast of debt where it would spiral out of control. And I'm very proud as part of this government that we've been able to turn that around in a small period of time. Mr. Speaker, New Zealand will have one of the lowest levels of debt of any developed country in the world. Will have, because of sound financial management and because of important sound financial decisions. Now, when it comes to assets, we've heard previously in the House Currently, the Crown, on behalf of New Zealand, owns about $245 billion of assets, and we have a very strong plan to grow that over the next 4 years to $267 billion. So this isn't actually, Mr. Speaker, just about what we own, because our commitment to assets on this side of the House is clear. So what's going to happen to these funds? We're not going to go and borrow. I've said we're going to invest in important projects for New Zealanders. Well, the Future Investment Fund will be established. Another thing that our Prime Minister told New Zealanders about before the last election. He came forward, he made speeches, he spoke on the doorsteps, he visited all parts of New Zealand and talked about our plan. $1 billion from this will go into modernising and transforming New Zealand schools. And what a great thing that will be. As I visit schools around New Zealand, boy, do they need that support. And one of the best things we can do is to support young New Zealanders by doing more for them in education. Already $88 million set aside for further hospital redevelopment, and I think we've only just started to hear the start of what these things can be used for. $250 million will go into Kiwi Rail. Well, some would say, what a waste of money. But actually, the previous government paid more to get that back than it was worth. There are some Australians that think that's a great idea, but we have made a commitment to turning around and making it work for New Zealanders, because you can't keep borrowing money to prop these things up. You can't keep paying taxpayers' money, putting them aside, as the last government did, to prop things up. They've got to work well, and this government will invest further in that. $400 million for irrigation, Mr. Speaker. What more is going to get parts of our economy, our rural sector going, than good, solid, positive irrigation that balances the environment with the needs of the farming community, so we can produce more and export more. Not borrow more, as the opposition will have us do, but actually to export more. And then there's money going into industrial research, high-tech, and so on and so forth. Now, those are some of the things we've announced in the budget, some of the things that are still to come. But, Mr. Speaker, can I say to you very clearly, New Zealanders have had an opportunity to come to this House via the Select Committee and talk about this issue. The committee has given all of the time that we could. I understand... opposite don't want to make decisions. I accept that. I understand that members opposite at the last election said they were against this piece of legislation. I understand that. And I understand they're still making the same old speech.
Order! What I want is what everyone wants in this world, and that's order. Call the honourable member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
McClay.
I'll do my best to stay within order. I understand that members opposite don't want this piece of legislation.
Point of order, the Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr. Speaker, the member was able to speak. He was continuing. I'm just want to question whether you should be protecting him, given the fact that that member was the one that stopped New Zealanders speaking when they wanted to in a select committee.
Order. The member may well have a point, but he also knows that that is a debating issue as well.
No, it's a fact. It's a fact.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At least I guess I can be grateful that Mr. Mallard directs these attacks at me in the House, not outside the back. That's happened before. Can I say to you very clearly, Mr. Speaker, that members opposite don't like this. I understand it. They were making those speeches the whole of last year.
The Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr. Speaker, you just asked the House to come back to the debate. That chicken member who wouldn't hear the debate in the committee has gone right away from it.
Look, the House is getting a little bit out of order, and we're starting to slide down. And I just ask members to reflect on this. This is a robust parliament, as it should be, but we should also be mindful of the contribution of others. Courtesy, honourable members, is contagious. Can I call the honourable member Todd McClay?
The Speaker, on this side of the House.
Point of order, the Honourable Clayton Cosgrove.
Whilst, sir, I accept your ruling that courtesy indeed is contagious, one other issue that draws the House into disorder is when people tell untruths, and that becomes contagious.
Order. The member knows. He's a long-standing member. He knows. The member will stand and withdraw.
I withdraw.
Thank you. I call the honourable member Todd McClay. Order. Point of order. The honourable member Michael Woodhouse.
Mr. Speaker, the term tell the truth is a phrase that creates disorder. It was a ruling from Speaker Wilson in the last Parliament, and I would ask that, and it's in 42(3), I would ask the member withdraw.
That's right.
Speaking to the point of order, the Clayton Cosgrove.
You will recall in the Parliament before last, the obscenities, including terms far more incendiary than that, including words like corruption and other things that were hurled at members of Parliament by that side of the House. And if we're going to rule out the phrase "tell the truth," then I suspect we won't have a debate at all, sir, in many cases in this Parliament.
Thank you. Can I just ask members to reflect on the debate as it stands and debate the issues? But I have looked at Speaker's rulings 42(3). It is indeed Margaret Wilson, and she said that phrase creates disorder in this House. So from there on, it will be considered an unparliamentary term. So I ask the member to withdraw. Withdraw. Trevor.
I withdraw.
Thank you. Order. Honourable Member Todd McClay.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. The truth of the matter is, for 11 months of last year, the Labour Party told New Zealanders not to vote for John Key of the National Government or they would sell assets. The truth of the matter is, for 11 months of last year, John Key told New Zealanders what he would do if we were re-elected to government. He told New Zealanders about our plan. The truth of the matter is New Zealanders had an opportunity to vote. They did so. I commend this bill to the House.
I call the Honourable Clayton Cosgrove.
The truth of